With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give the fan favorite everywhere belt bag, the real gift is... And when the ultra-soothing Rest Feel slides are the gift, you're really giving them... This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give little luxuries that go beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Gangland.
All right. Let's welcome back.
MisFitNation.
All right, you know how we do here. It's been a great day. It's our first time going on this app, and we hope you love it as much as we do. If you're a veteran and you're struggling, or you feel like you're leading a path towards that darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you'd be a burden to someone, or feel embarrassed to talk to your inner circle or your family and friends, do not hesitate to dial 988 and press option 1. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. And please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. That's _MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell. This will keep you up to date with our latest news, episodes, and of course, the stories of our great guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is a podcast host, a coach. He's a 30-something-year-old guy who loves to laugh and hates to cry. He has an adventurous side where he seeks new experiences, but he also loves to be at home. He cherishes every day and night. This includes the bad ones. He makes it his practice to see the good in people. So without further ado, let's welcome Kevin Lowe to the MisFitNation. Welcome, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm super stoked to be here.
Man, it's been a long time coming. I know we had to reschedule, I think, one time because of family issues, but I'm glad we're here. It's been about a month since the two of us actually talked to each other live, but this is awesome to have you here. I'm glad to have you as my test guy on this new platform.
Yeah, man, I'm always up for being a test dummy, you know.
You're like my test robot. It's good.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, man. I'm super stoked to be here. Like you said, man, this is great. Thank you for being flexible with the rescheduling, and yeah, man, this is awesome.
That's great. So, Kevin, if you don't mind, like you did with me on your show, tell me a little bit about your story from as far back as you want to go to where we are now.
Yeah, man, definitely. So really my story is segmented at the age of 17. And I say segmented because I kind of use the age of 17 as a pivotal point in my life. And at that moment, that was back in 2003. I'm a junior in high school, living in my hometown here in East Central Florida. Living my best life, man. I mean, I was one of those kids who hated school growing up, to the point that, I mean, I would rather be sick with the flu than have to go to school. But finally, school wasn't such a horrific thing. Now a junior in high school, I had the biggest, coolest truck in school. It was a big forest green 96 Ford F-150 4x4, raised, had 6 inches of lift, 2-inch body lift, and then 38-inch mutters. It was my pride and joy, man. And so driving to school, school became cool when you got to drive yourself to school. It's not like mom was dropping you off, and stuff. And so anyways, life was going great. Outside of school, I worked. I was a good old Florida Publix employee, worked as a bag boy after school, and had to make some money to spend on gas for that gas guzzler. So life was going good until all of a sudden it wasn't. And it came with the news that I had a brain tumor. Now, I had been having really health issues for pretty much my entire life, but nothing like severe. I mean, things like, like wearing glasses, and, always it seemed like every year that I'd go to the eye doctor, I'd end up having to get a new pair of glasses, because they kept saying my vision, kept getting worse or whatever. I wasn't growing. Here I was, kid with the tallest truck in school, yet I was also the littlest guy. I was only 5'3". I had never started growing and never gone through puberty yet. So I was just this little kid, little enough, in fact, just a quick side note, that soon after turning 16 and getting my driver's license, I always was at the same gas station. Because like I said, I think my truck got like 8 miles to the gallon going with the wind. And so the gas attendant I became really good friends with. Well, she told me one day that she's like, "Oh my gosh, you were in here yesterday." She's like, "There was a guy come running into the store saying he called the police that some kid stole a pickup truck." And so she had to immediately call off the cop. So like I said, I was a little dude. And so I had all these issues, and we finally got the answer of why. Never, though, did we think it was going to be a brain tumor, but found out I had a brain tumor. Luckily enough, an hour from my home was the leading pediatric neurosurgeon in the country, and he assured us, "Hey, it's going to be okay." It wasn't cancerous, thank goodness, but he said, we have to remove it pretty much immediately because the tumor had completely encased my pituitary gland. It was in the crosshairs of my optic nerve and had begun pressing against my carotid artery. And so they literally gave me 6 months to live without this tumor being removed. And so I went in to have it removed, all fun and games. I mean, for me, remember, I was a kid who hated school. So I was like, whoop, whoop. I get out of school for like a month, and I was like, this is awesome. I named my tumor Bob the tumor. So we literally had a going away Bob party, all the things. And so that was life until, again, the second, hammer dropped, and that came after surgery. Now, I don't remember any of the time after I went into the operating room. My memory gets real shady after that. But it was soon after coming out of the operating room, maybe between like the next day and like 3 days after, is when they realized that I had went blind. Wow. My mom was in the room with the neurosurgeon, and I kept messing with one of those pulse ox, things was on my toe, and said that the doctor had told me, he's like, "Kevin, do you see this? You don't yank this off. Do you see the red light on the tip of this?" And I said, "No, I don't see it." And at that moment, the doctor looked at my mom and he walked over to the doorway and he flicked on the light. He's like, Kevin, do you see this light? And I said, no, I don't see anything. And that's when they found out. I was left completely blind. So I was left with no light perception whatsoever. So a lot of people who are blind still have some degree of sight. A lot of them see shapes or shadows, some type of light perception. I became completely blind. I also lost my ability to smell. Ended up having short-term memory loss it was really bad for the first 6 months. Some of my family members may tell you it still affects me today. And but I feel like that's more like selective memory. But yeah, man. And so that really set me on this new stage of life, of learning to live again, learning to love life again. And now I'm coming up October of 2022. It's going to be 19 years since I went blind. I'm still blind. I still can't see, except for, just as a little teaser, there is a little thing about seeing through sound as I use echolocation, much like you would think of a bat or dolphin. So.
Wow. And I know I talked about you enjoying every day and night, even the bad ones in the intro, but you even showed when you were diagnosed with the tumor that you had fun with that and stayed positive. You named it Bob the tumor. I mean, not a lot of young men would do that and name the tumor just to have fun with it and spin it positively as they went through this. I mean, this is a very big change for a young man to go through. And then at the end of that, also lose your sight, short-term memory, and a sense of smells. I mean, smell. So you had COVID before it was COVID, before it was cool.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what everybody during COVID. Well, can you smell? I'm like, no. Oh no, I can't. What do you think that means?
He's patient zero. All right.
Exactly. I'm like, this COVID took my smell and my sight.
You said you worked at Publix. Publix is a pretty good company for young people to work at. I think they teach them some good leadership skills there.
Yeah.
You were working there, and of course, the company started in Florida, right there where you are.
Yep.
I know that pay wasn't enough to pay for that gas in that truck. You had to have some side hustle too.
Of course. Luckily, I was a kid in school, so I had parent money as well. So
you had the discretionary funds of mom and dad. That's good.
Exactly. But I tell you, dude, what was really cool is I worked at Publix, but I ended up the summer in between my sophomore year and my junior year, I ended up quitting Publix, much to my mom's disapproval. And I went to work with my dad, my dad has always worked in construction. And so land clearing. And so he has heavy equipment, bulldozers, backhoes, loaders, stuff like that. And so I went to work for him that summer. And now looking back at it, because it would just be the next school year when I became blind, dude, you want to talk about somebody who I'm so glad that I quit Publix and got to do a summer working with my dad, knowing now, what I know. And so that was, something, really, just really amazing about my story.
Definitely is. And then you got to see what goes into that hard work of the construction world and the moving earth, building things, breaking things down, building things up. And you got to see that for one last time, basically that summer before all this whirlwind happened to you. So, I mean, that is a blessing that you have those memories. And I mean, like you said, you have selective memory for other things, but that's arguable. We can go to court with that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So your positive outlook, do you attribute that to your mom and dad's upbringing of you growing up? Were they always positive and pushing that mindset for you?
Man, it's something that is unique to Kevin. I grew up, I was really lucky the way I grew up. I grew up with an amazing family. I grew up having some amazing opportunities. we were never rich by any means, but I got to do stuff. I got to do a lot of stuff, from vacations, traveling, going snow skiing up in Snowshoe, West Virginia, or going down snorkeling in the Florida Keys, or me and my dad, I was big into riding dirt bikes. Matter of fact, rode dirt bikes and four-wheelers. I got my first dirt bike when I was, I think, 4 years old. It had training wheels on it. And me and my dad, we rode dirt bikes just all growing up until I went blind. And me and him, we'd go out camping. We went to a state park in Florida called Croom, where we'd camp for a week at a time and do nothing but ride dirt bikes all day long. And so growing up, like I said, I was really blessed. But I look back on my life now, and I look back on all those experiences, all the things that I did, paired with my positive personality. And I have to say that I believe, I'm a big person of my faith. My faith is a big part of my journey, a big part of my story. And so when I look back on my life now, I can see where God's hands were at work, kind of creating me into a person who could handle it, because he knew what was going to happen. So he wanted to give me all these opportunities to do and see and try new things as much as possible, and live as much as I could in those first 17 years, all the while building on my personality and who I was to handle it, what was to come, and to do something with it. And and so that's just me. I mean, for example, everyone in my family is definitely not my same personality. There's some family members who we joke lovingly and say, wow, if this had happened to them, life would be a living hell. So luckily they know it's true, and so they laugh.
I mean, it's still, I think, all those building blocks, all the things you got to do, like you said, those first 17 years was a whirlwind for you. I mean, not many 17-year-old kids get a lifted truck or
Yep.
get to work at a construction site or at Publix and have the freedom you had as a 17-year-old, even though you said your own description, you're 5'3",
Yep.
basically a little guy compensating with the big truck and
Yep.
doing that stuff. I mean, a lot of people probably would laugh and, oh, look at that little guy coming out of there. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what everybody, it was so funny because, of course the joke is, the little guy's got to have the biggest truck. And I'm like, whoa. I always knew I wanted a big truck. It's not my fault that I'm little. Like but so
I didn't make the truck.
Exactly. So yeah, man. Yeah, it was good. It was really, really good. It was, like I said, and I look back on my life, now that I've lived now even longer being completely blind than I ever did with sight. And sometimes it's hard to believe because, growing up, it's such a pivotal point in your life and in your developing of the person you are, today, later on. And so, like I said, I'm very blessed that I've had the opportunities, the experiences I've had that I believe, have just further shaped me into the person who has been able to take what happened to me and run with it.
Exactly. And a lot of young people, if they're 17, they might have been blind their whole lives. So they went to, say, like the Florida School of the Blind, or like here we have the Tennessee School for the Blind. So you're around other blind children. You're learning how to use those adaptive things that you've learned to use now, like the Echo Box and stuff like that. Do you think that was it was harder for you as a 17-year-old to learn that after having sight all those years, or did you adapt a lot quicker than most people believed you would?
Yeah, man, you do. I adapted really pretty quick. Obviously, if you're somebody who's been blind all your life, that's all but for me, I really did have to make a big transition, even from the aspect of like learning. I was a visual learner. And so I had to completely switch the way that I learn to completely, just auditory. And, so just little things like that. But I adapted really quick. I remember I had teachers who, so I had the brain tumor removed. That was couple of months into my junior year of high school. I never went back to school the rest of that year. I ended up having teachers through a program called Hospital Homebound, who I had 3 teachers who came to my house. My mom would drop me off over at my grandparents' house. I would stay with Nana during the day while she went to work. And I had my teachers come to her house, and I had one teacher who taught me my school subjects, another teacher who taught me how to read Braille, and then how to learn to use a computer with the talking software. And then I had a third teacher who taught me mobility skills, getting around and all of that. And so the teacher who taught me Braille, I always brag because she said that I learned Braille faster than any other student she had ever had. And, and stuff. And so that was, like really cool. And so I adapted, but what took the longest for me was, even though I could learn how to do the stuff, it took me way longer than what the quote unquote experts told my parents it should take me for me to fully like step into this new life. Because in the back of my mind, I was still holding on hope that I would see again one day. Because, we live in a world where everything's fixable. If it's not doctors, it's God's going to perform a miracle. Something's going to happen. And I'm going to be able to see this is all temporary. Until finally I came to a point along my journey when I finally was like, you know what? Even if I don't see again in this lifetime, that's okay. But I need to be sure that right now I make the very most I can out of this life and live it for everything it's worth. And so what if in a year something happens and I see again? Well, then awesome. But don't give up on living life right now. And that's what really got me propelled forward.
That's definitely the best mindset to have in that situation. You basically made lemonade out of lemons right there, and you pushed yourself forward. And I think when we come back from the break here, we'll start talking about how all this transitioned into you becoming a coach and your coaching avenue of approach after this. In about a minute and a half.
Shredded bubble gum stuffed into a giant Stay Fresh pouch. For big league flavor and big league bubbles, it's Big League Chew.
You're in the big leagues when you're in the Big League Chew.
How many car ads have you seen with grandiose speeches over the years? Big declarations, making claims to some overarching human truth. Companies call these commercials manifestos. There's your manifesto.
All right, Misfit Nation, we're back with Kevin Lowe, host of the Lowdown podcast. He's a coach, and we're going to get into talking about his coaching now. We heard about his journey, how he was hit with the tumor, bobbed the tumor. They removed the tumor. Lost his sight, lost his sense of smell, and some short-term memory. Like I said earlier, that's an arguable fact there. I think every man has short-term memory loss, so that one there, he can battle on with that one. But now we're going to transition and talk about his coaching and how he got that started and where it's going to.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Dude, I have a quick story to share that I think your audience would appreciate real quick before we dive into the coaching aspect.
All right.
back when I was telling you about me being at my grandmother's house each day, doing the school subject, had the teachers coming. Well, it was around that time, senior year of high school, when like the recruiters, the Army recruiters started coming around the school,
Right.
Well, I had the recruiter, lo and behold, call my Nana's house one day looking for me. And so I say to him, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, sorry, but I'm blind. And so I hung up the phone. Well, a few minutes later, phone rings. My Nana answers it. It's the same guy. He's like, yes, ma'am. I was trying to get in touch with Kevin. I'm, the recruiter for, the Army and no. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't want my grandson. And he's like, excuse me, why don't we want him? And she's laughing. She said, he's blind. Unless you guys are so desperate you're hiring blind people now. No, she's like, I don't think you want him. And so, of course, at that point, I'm in the background cracking up and I'm telling her, I'm like, Nana, tell him that as long as the enemy's talking, I'm sure I can hit him. So, so
that's outstanding.
So I don't get to share that story with most crowds. And I was like, hey, wait, this is the perfect crowd for me to get to share this with. So
it would have been great if all 4 services called like after each other and had to go through the same thing with you.
Exactly.
Because they didn't want to be the only one that got that story that day. So they wanted to share with everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that's awesome. That's an awesome segue into your coaching too, because you had your jokes right there and telling them. So now you use I'm sure you use your positivity to help people mold their positivity and have a forward thinking mindset. So how did your coaching come about and where do you see it in 5 years from now?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much. So the coaching is really an evolution from the podcast. So I started the podcast back in 2020 when everybody and their mother started a podcast when we were in quarantine. And that came off of, I had owned a home-based travel agency for the previous 7 years. So I started a travel agency in 2013, did that all the way up until 2020 when I was set to have my best year ever. And then, of course, in 1 week, everything disappeared. The company took, as I say, a head dive right into the shallow end of the swimming pool. And travel agency was pretty much done. But I'm a firm believer that everything in life happens for a reason, and a good reason at that. Even the bad stuff. And I know the bad stuff, it takes a while to travel down the road before we can look back and understand how it fit into life for a good reason. For me, the travel agency ending opened a door for me to try something new. I started the podcast. Originally, I started the podcast as a way to promote the travel agency. At that point, I hadn't given up on it. And so I did the podcast and I started podcasting and quickly realized that I loved it. I loved the people I was talking to, realized quickly that I didn't want to just focus on travel stuff. I wanted to talk about more than that. And so that led into me, really getting into these in-depth interviews with people. And I kept having so many of the people I interviewed would tell me, they're like, after we would finish the interview, they'd say, Kevin, they're like, you asked me questions that no one else has ever asked before. Or I've had people say, like, you see parts of my story that no one else sees. And so it was from all of that it was this gradual thing that I started exploring this realm of coaching. Because before I got into coaching, I didn't even know what coaching was. I mean, coaching, I thought that's the PE coach in school who was a total jerk, And so and it was the same for podcasting. When I started a podcast, I had only recently started listening to podcasts because, truth be told, I actually had wanted to start a YouTube channel. And that was what I was going to do until I started ordering all the film equipment off of Amazon. And then I'm like, OMG, you're a blind guy. What are you doing with video? You don't know where to look or what's going on. This is a horrible idea. And so it was then that I found out about podcasting, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good alternative. and then lo and behold, like I fall in love with podcasting for so many different reasons. And so, and so the podcast, like I said, that then was this natural evolution into the realm of coaching. And so the coaching is an incredible opportunity for me to again kind of give back, kind of using my own experience for good. Because again, like I said, I believe that everything happens for a reason, and a good reason at that. And I also believe that it's only a bad situation if you can't figure out how to make good out of it. And for me, the way that I've been able to make good out of becoming blind is sharing my story, like I'm doing here on the podcast today, or by using it somehow to inspire, empower, encourage other people who are going through stuff in their own life. And so that's exactly what I do as a coach, is kind of helping people who've gone through some stuff. They're in a career path that isn't bringing them joy, isn't pulling on their passions. And instead they're like, you know what, maybe it's time that I make a change, but they're just not sure how. They're not sure what to do, or just don't have really the encouragement behind them to do it. And so that's where I'm able to work with my clients, helping them to really pull on their past, look back at the stuff in their life that's happened that they've overcome, and figure out where are their real gifts at, what really lights them up. And now let's figure out a way for you to turn that into a business, into a new career. And so that's what I do as a coach. And it's just absolutely awesome.
I'm sure the evolution for you has been great. I mean, it's a whirlwind, only 2 years to go from trying to promote the travel agency to try to save that from the depths of Mr. COVID.
Yeah.
And then transitioning into the lowdown with Kevin Lowe, where you get to chat with people, then becoming the coach after learning all the things that you were seeing in people and how to make them feel better, or the better parts of their stories that they don't even see. So, I mean, that's awesome that you were able to make that pivot without even really knowing that you were doing it.
Yeah, exactly, man. And you know what, though? That's how I believe in life. You know that you're going in the right direction is when you don't have to try.
Right.
When you're literally just caught up in the flow of the river and you're not fighting to go a different direction, life is just going with it and you're enjoying it and you're waking up every day loving it. That's when you know you're on the right path.
Definitely is. Have you ever thought of doing motivational speaking as well as part of this? Because I mean, your positive mindset, you're a motivator. Where you were punched in the gut as a young man, and you were able to come out on the other side and still maintain a positivity and move forward. The whole world needs that story in front of them on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's something that I would love to do. I've never really done. Just haven't known how to get into it. It's gone really as far as is either doing podcasts, radio shows, sharing my story, or sometimes I've gotten up on stages in front of some events just sharing my story. But it is, man, it's something that I just truly love. Like I said, just being able to share the story and see people who can relate to whatever they got going on in life. And then being able to, when I have people tell me like, wow, like your story, it really made a difference in my life. I'm like, yeah, that's what it's all about, It's
an instant victory right there. You're stacking those victories right there by not only helping them, but helping yourself as well by feeling that their positivity is coming up and you got that momentum going to them. And I think you'd be great. And even if you do it virtually to 1 million schools a day or whatever.
Exactly.
You can pump up the youth and get them going in the right direction.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, I do speak at some schools, but live in person, but they're little kids, kindergarten, first graders. I get to talk to them, but for them, it's not about motivational talks. More, it's about I go in there with the idea that I'm going to paint myself as a blind superhero, and that works really well until I have the little smart aleck kid who tries to make me look stupid, because of course they really don't want to hear me talk. They just want to ask questions. And I'll have the one little punk who tries to make me look bad, who's like, so how are you able to light the charcoal yourself? And how do you know when the charcoal's ready to cook on?
Of course.
And I'm like, I'm like, That's why I'm the kind of guy who goes to the barbecue and doesn't have the barbecue. Okay.
I don't become the barbecue.
Exactly.
There is one quote I believe I read on your website: "Close your eyes and let imagination take over." I think it's something along those lines. I think that's a great quote. Did you come up with that on your own, or did someone push that to you?
It's probably something I came up with my own.
That's a pretty good one there.
I'm full of good ideas. Yeah.
One giant light bulb now.
I'll take credit for it, man. I'll take credit for it.
That's Kevin Lowe 2020.
That's right. Exactly.
So Kevin, if you don't mind, tell people how they can get in contact with you if they want to have you on their show, or they want to hire you as a coach, or they want to listen to your show or be on your show.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, man, thank you so much, dude. This has been amazing being on the show today. Yeah, the best place, easiest place to find me, to find everything I'm doing in life is really just all through my website. And that's literally just www.thelowdownwithkevinlowe.com. As I always emphasize, please be sure you're spelling lowdown correctly, and that's with an E. So it's the lowdown, LOWEDOWN with kevinlowe.com. And so, like you said, yeah, I mean, right there, you can find the podcast. You can subscribe, follow, do all the things. Check out my blog that I'm sometimes posting stuff on when I get inspired to write. Otherwise, I'm just recording podcast episodes and coaching and doing all the things.
Awesome, Kevin. And thanks again for taking some of your time to share your story and your awesome journey with us here. And of course, all of the Misfit Nation.
In a past life, he was himself. If opportunity knocks and he's not home, opportunity waits. He gave his father the talk. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friends.
Well, all right. That was great chat with Kevin Lowe of the Lowdown Podcast. Again, make sure you visit his website and get in contact with him. He's a great guy to talk to. If you want to be on his show, get on that show. He is funny. He'll keep you going the whole show. And like we had a .com. Check out our podcast, check out our YouTube, subscribe to both, because subscribers equal help for us and keep this thing going. And we really appreciate everything you're doing for us, and we'll keep pumping up the Misfit Nation from here and into the future. So as always, stay humble, be hungry, and keep hustling, because you know who we are.
Misfit Nation.